Hey there. Hi there. Um, good afternoon. Good to see everybody. Hi there. Yeah, praise Cain. Um, well, I'm back. I took a little bit of a break. I had a bunch of work, so that's good. So I messed around a little bit with the setup here of my stream with my various social media links. Yeah, I mean it's not afternoon. I guess it's not even noon yet, technically. So yeah, it's just feels late in the day to me. So that's fair. Yeah, I guess it's what it's 11 here on the East Coast. So that's pretty far off from afternoon. So right, well, yes, it could be 4 p.m. someplace else for sure. Um, but yeah, where I'm at, I'm on the East Coast. I'm right outside of Washington D.C. And it's 11, so not afternoon, but here we are. But yeah, welcome back. I'm going to continue talking about disciplines and all that, and digging into the Black Hand playing the Sabbat, and I think in the future I will expand beyond this book, talk about other books and other projects and things along those lines. Maybe talk about some other IPs I've been working on as well. I'll probably still mostly focus on World of Darkness stuff overall. I've also disabled the ads on this channel. They didn't really, as best I could. I think I still get ads no matter what, but I definitely put them at the minimum I could put them. So any ads you see are not my ads. So feel free to ignore them. I'm sure you looked intently when you knew they were mine. Um, but yeah, I didn't really see much point in that at the moment. Maybe if the channel actually gets a lot of views or something, I'll figure out something else. But I didn't really see much purpose in keeping the ads. Obviously, YouTube or wherever else this is posted later will put whatever ads they want on it. But as far as Twitch is concerned, uh, I'm now streaming live with the minimum amount of ads that Twitch will allow. Beyond the Black Hand book, um, well, I guess beyond digging into the Black Hand book, I have gotten confirmation from Paradox that all the work from the Black Hand book that was published in official World of Darkness products, specifically the Gehenna War V5 book, all the Sabbat material from the Black Hand that was taken from our book will be credited to us. So that's good news. So I got some official confirmation for that. I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I got official confirmation for that about a week or two ago. I guess about 2 weeks now. So that's good news. I don't think it'll be anything more than credit, but that's the way these things are. I don't have any leverage or power or anything like that to get anything more than that. So I'm happy with the credit. I don't know the details of that crediting, uh, so hopefully it'll be full credit for our team, not just me. And of course, hopefully the book itself will be mentioned and credited on the page, not just in the credits section. Um, but who knows? As far as I know, that will be rolled out in the PDF before the end of April. That's what was told to me. That's basically all the information I got. Um, I don't really have like direct communications. Like I don't have a constant flow of communications with Paradox. I basically just when they have time to get back to me, they get back to me. Usually they're pretty good, oddly enough. Usually actually, I mean, to be fair, the when I was discussing with them in the past, they actually got back to me almost immediately. Literally, I would send an email and I would get one right back. I'm maybe because I'm up so late, so perhaps I was just emailing them in the middle of the day for them. Um, who knows? So that's great. Um, but we'll see if they get back to me about the specific details of how the book will be credited. You know, obviously, I don't want to have to continuously get into a rigmarole about, you know, what is crediting and all that. I would just like it to be, you know, all said and done. Um, well, as far as work, there's really just not that much coming down the pipe for World of Darkness as far as I can see. Um, Past the kind of politics book, I actually haven't seen any book announcements for World of Darkness. I haven't pitched anything to them specifically, as I've been working on other projects and my own kind of IPs and stuff. Um, so as far as them throwing more work my way, that's really up to them. Schedule. If my schedule is open, certainly that would be great. We'll see, but I don't think there's any issues there as far as that's concerned. Um, yeah, I mean this would be different than say Damnation City. This is, you know, technically a V5 source now. It's, you know, in, you know, they're not like calling out a movie or something like that. You know, they're calling out a V5 product, and by the terms of agreement in the Storyteller's Vault, that product, that stuff can't be used without my permission, as it were, because of the fact that it is still all IP. So what it actually is doing is it's churning the hey there, it's churning the well, right. So it's basically turning that little piece of the Black Hand playing the Sabbat into official content, is basically what's happening. Uh, our Seraphim and that their Sabbat cohort and all that is now official V5 content, and all that. And, you know, that's fine by me. I just, like, you know, bare minimum obviously would be crediting the writers involved. That specific Seraphim actually wasn't even my brainchild. That was actually Saskia who wrote that. She's a bit of a, Salubri fangirl. So she really, came up with a really intriguing idea for a Salubri Seraphim. And the cohort, I forget what her host is called. I think it's the Endless Host, if I remember. Um, and so, hey there, Fenris. Thanks for hopping in. Um, I'm glad, you know, we've got some people in the chat. Um, did I have any thoughts on the suggestion in Gehenna War that Moon's host is being manipulated by Goratrix? Well, in the I mean, to be fair, the main section of information about that character, that host, and all that is found in the Seraphim's lore sheet, Zhang Moon's lore sheet, and actually throughout the book. Like, uh, to really understand kind of what was taken from our book, you couldn't just read that lore sheet. You would have to actually read kind of throughout the whole book, because a lot of the stuff that is put in Gehenna War is actually bits and pieces that is alluded to throughout the book. So, well, I'm glad you could come in, Fenris. But to answer your question, Gord Whisper, uh, basically to really get what they took, in a sense, you'd really have to read the whole book, the whole Black Hand playing the Sabbat book. You couldn't just read like one lore sheet, because there's elements taken from Zhang Moon's Seraphim lore sheet. There's elements taken from the House of Goratrix lore sheet, and there's elements taken from different sections throughout. Like, you would have actually had to have read some of the fiction sections, some little tidbits here and there. So it was really someone who'd actually read the whole book and absorbed it, who used our material. So they obviously thought it was official content probably is what I've been told, which is fine by me. I'll take that as a compliment. Like the book's trade dress has Storyteller's Vault right on the cover. We don't use the big splashy Vampire the Masquerade bottom logo that all official V5 content books are used. And to buy this STV trade dress agreement, you're not actually supposed to be able to use that big, Vampire the Masquerade on the bottom of the book, unless you're an official product. So that's why our book doesn't have it. I see it on some STV products. I mean, whichever. It's they don't really monitor STV like, the content police, which I appreciate on some level. Like I've heard horror stories about other community content sites where they basically are constantly, kicking books off the site because like the cover is too sexy and or they're talking about something political or something like that. So I'm glad they don't really do that on the STV. It seems you can basically put up there anything you want. And I've not really heard of anyone getting their stuff pulled off there. There's even, I think, a book on there called like the Player's Guide, which obviously is the exact same name as the official V5 book. So they don't really seem to, be content cops, which I appreciate. So as far as the host, Bong Jae-moon's host, the Endless Host being manipulated by Goretrix, that is actually somewhat implied by the book. So if you read the book and basically how Goretrix operates, how the Endless Host operates beyond just the Seraphim's lore sheet, you will actually get that implication. That House Goretrix basically is playing both sides against each other, and that they really get their hooks in, either into Sabat and others, and that they're kind of basically using Zhang Bei-moon's hatred of not just Tremere but of her own Salubri elders for their own purposes. So I actually think that Gehenna War's suggestion that the host is being manipulated by Goretrix is actually a very tight reading of what's in the book, which I appreciate. They kick a few titles because of illustrations. Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, that's probably one bookshelf more than anything else. That's fair. I have had a friend who had a I think it was a D&D title kicked off because I guess they thought it was too sexually suggestive or something like that. But it was like a Drider, so I don't know exactly how that works. I would have thought maybe more likely they would have kicked it off because of like arachnophobia fears or something like that. But I guess there's some people who just thought the spider was too sexy and couldn't be on one bookshelf, so they had to like get a whole new cover. And that was kind of, and obviously they were hiring artists for that, so that was not a insignificant thing for them. Yes, right. So it was actually D&D community content that they were talking about. Yeah, and I've heard that the Chaosium program, I've heard that too, Fenris, that the Chaosium program is very creator friendly. I have friends over at Chaosium. I know Bridget, who manages their community very well. She seems fantastic. I follow her on socials. We've LARPed together, and I've long thought about producing stuff for the Chaosium community content program, simply because I've heard such great things about their community content program. Yeah, no, Bridget. From firsthand experience, I can say that Bridget is fantastic. Yes, so we're in agreement there. She is a good gamer. We need as many good gamers in the community as possible. I agree with that. Right. That's what I've heard, Fenris, is that the Chaosium community program is not only very friendly and open, but they are very, I guess, I don't know, forward's not the right word, but they're very helpful in getting you up to the print on demand program, right? Yeah, once you've sold enough books, silver, I guess, yeah. Once you go silver, then boom, you can do print on demand, which is huge for any content creator. That's really my main gripe, I guess, with the V5 community content program is that they don't allow print on demand. I wish I did. I think it would have. I think it would do wonders for the program. And considering kind of just the low stream of RPG books put out by World of Darkness, I think it would help a lot with keeping the community engaged. Like I think we don't need the '90s level of just like non-stop releases to kind of flood the market. I mean, I would say that kind of helped with the with the crash of White Wolf uh, in the like late '90s, early 2000s. I guess it was early 2000s when third edition D&D came in and all that ate their lunch because they had so many lines with Exalted and all that, and it was just like so many books. It was just a flood. So we don't need that kind of deluge. And yes, especially exactly for a lore for what was a very lore heavy game, that was a bit much, and it made the kind of ring fence of getting into the game very high, and I think that didn't help either. So we don't need that much content, but definitely I think a print on demand for the V5 would help a lot. I can actually say, and I'm sure I've told this story before. I mean, it's not a secret or anything like that. But they were planning on doing print on demand for the STV a long time ago. This was actually after the Black Hand Playing the Sabbat had just really released. It's just been out maybe a few months. Um, and One Bookshelf actually approached me and they asked if I would like to be the first V5 book to be put into the POD program. And they put me in touch with an editor and all this stuff. And me and the editor basically went through the book, like spent, a long time, like several, like I'd say 2 weeks, just like, you know, going through it and just working out all the little kind of like technical details to make sure the book could POD effortlessly. And then literally the day we were supposed to go live and put it on the vault to be POD, we basically got a note saying that it wasn't happening, that there was not going to be V5 POD, which I was not happy about. I thought that was like a real big waste of my time and the editor's time, especially since I was technically the one who was going to have to like pay for the editor in the end of the day, as far as I remember. So that kind of sucked. I was a little concerned that maybe there was some kind of like, shenanigans on the back end. As I'm sure some people know and have heard, the RPG community can be a little kind of cliquish and snipey sometimes. That's not really something I like to engage with personally. This kind of like, drama between people. But One Bookshelf, I talked to them. I actually talked to a VP at One Bookshelf. Um, and we had a really great discussion. It was fantastic. So I actually have really good feelings towards One Bookshelf as a company. They're clearly run by people who really care and gamers, which is great. So so they really put my mind at ease. And they actually reimbursed me for my time, and I assume for the editor's time and all that. So even though we didn't actually get to POD the Black Hand Playing the Sabbat, despite all the work we put in to make it POD friendly, I actually walked away from that experience, with a good feeling about One Bookshelf and all that. I have no insight into what happened other than I guess probably Paradox decided that they didn't want kind of quote unquote competing books on the shelves. They wanted the physical products to only be the official books. I don't know if that's ever going to change in the future. I don't know if the Storyteller's Vault is really something that's top of their mind in general. Um, so we'll see. We'll see if that ever changes. Um, so I have changed the layout of my streaming thing. I've put all my social media stuff. You can find me on Twitter at @KKhalil. You can find my YouTube channel where I basically post all these videos, which is at Moon RPGs, and of course my Patreon, which is True Moon. At Patreon, I don't really post a lot. Like as I said, Khalil at Twitter, I post a great deal, but really not about gaming, mostly about politics and stuff. On YouTube, I really only post these videos, but I do my best to respond to any comments that anybody has about anything. And then at True Moon is my Patreon, which I'm trying to be better about posting stuff there. Mostly I put my go live announcements, anything that's, any conventions I'm going to, that kind of thing. So yeah, feel free to follow me at any of those. The Patreon, you're more than welcome to subscribe, but you don't have to. Most of my posts are free. In fact, I think basically all of my posts are free, and so on. But yeah, for today, I'm talking about disciplines. I'm returning to the Black Hand, playing the Sabbat, and I'm going to talk more about disciplines today. Just going to go through them a little bit. And we could talk about them and all that. I've already talked about disciplines before. I went through animalism through obfuscate. Yep. And now I'm at potence. Basically, all the physical disciplines, as I said before last time, have weak spots. They have levels where maybe there's not a lot of great powers there. And I'm just talking about the core book, not the player's guide and all that. I wrote a lot of this ones for the player's guide too, the official player's guide as well. So I kind of took that ethos there too. In the player's guide, you'll see stuff like Gorgon scales. Which is a Fortitude 4 power. Though I've complained about this before, I think of all the stuff I've written, Gorgon Scale is the only thing where I feel like it kind of... I don't usually care about editing too much in general, but I really feel kind of... the power's a lot weaker than I intended it to be, based upon just the editing of it. Because in the original version, it had a default power if you didn't have a resonance. So it had a default ability if you had no resonance. And I don't mean empty resonance. I mean if you simply didn't have a resonance. And that's not in the power anymore, which I feel makes it kind of a weaker power. Because I think for most players, they're walking around basically without really knowing about their resonance. So only a game that kind of really, only a player who's really seeking out resonances, or a game that really puts resonances front and center, is going to really benefit from that power. So I feel the fact that in editing a kind of baseline ability of that power is no longer there, kind of weakens it. But that's fine. It's okay. That's really the only thing. A bunch of caitiff merits that in flaws I wrote were also changed here and there, but for the most part they're fine, and I love it. In fact, I noticed a bunch of the merits and flaws I wrote for the Vampires Player's Guide are being used in the Dimension 20 V5 game. I guess everyone loves that check the trunk merit. I noticed 2 or 3 players had it, and I think 2 or 3 players had the side hustler merit, which I also thought was great. I like those merits a lot too. I was just surprised that people that several players would take them, but who knows. So but I haven't seen the episode. Maybe I'll watch it and see what it's like. I actually don't have Dropout. A friend of mine has it, so maybe I'll watch it at her place. I don't know. Are they that? Are they really that good? I thought they were pretty. I know they're good. I wrote them, but I didn't really know they were all that. Actually, check the trunk and side hustler. I think originally when I wrote those, they may have been Caitiff only merits. But Ken kind of made a good argument, which was basically like, yeah, they fit into the Caitiff shtick very well, but since they're so kind of since there's nothing like supernatural about them or like bloodline related about them really, or really only sociologically applicable to Caitiff, that they should be general merits, which I couldn't really argue with that. That was fair. And Caitiff had I'd already written so many Caitiff merits; they don't really need more, anyway. Um, it is what it is. Yeah, and well, I mean, we kind of moved away from the idea of clan merits and clan specific merits. So yeah, I do agree that there was a need for more just merits and flaws for players in general. Uh, yeah. Something that really kind of like helps in the game is always good. So I agree with that. And the the original player's guide, which I worked on, but was shelved very early on. That obviously no material from that was reused in the VPG that was eventually published. But the shelved Vampires Player's Guide was going to have clan specific merits and flaws in it, and was going to be really a lot more clan focused. Um, but we really kind of moved away from that concept. Um, I mean, really, that book was kind of shelved because Justin came in basically during its production, and he had a whole new kind of vision for how books were going to be produced uh, in the between the distributor and the publisher. And then, of course, Renegade was switched in from Modiphius. So that's kind of where that book kind of got shelved. And to be honest, I'm kind of happy that that book got shelved because there were some things in there that were kind of coming down from on high that I didn't particularly like personally. I'm very happy with that. I think I'd say the only thing I probably would have changed really in the VPG slash companion that did come out would probably been maybe the Zemisei power set, and maybe the Ravnos as a whole. But that's okay. I think the Ravnos as they are, um, there's not a lot there, to be honest. So I can kind of keep pushing my vision for the Ravnos in the Storyteller's Vault and elsewhere, and see if that sticks. Hopefully, as opposed to the kind of as the Ravnos are composed in the VPG and in the companion. As for the Zemisei, I my main complaint is obviously that they don't have Auspex and they have Dominate. And they don't have Dominate, and sorry, they don't have Auspex and they have Dominate instead, which okay, I can understand the kind of like practical idea behind that, like Protean and Dominate create vicissitude, is actually very elegant in some sense. But as an old Clan Zemisei hater, uh, I really don't like Zemisei with Dominate in general. I think Auspex is just like such a core Zemisei power. And I feel that Protean Auspex would have been a very interesting way to create vicissitude in a more kind of like existence kind of way that you're connecting, with some kind of inner self or chakra or spiritual self in some sense, that you are then, producing with your body. I would not have gone with animalism protean, obviously, because I don't want Gangrel having that easy access. Also, Auspex protean would have been a very unique way of doing it, but it is what it is. Yeah, well, just as MSA, as for it, I'd say Auspex is just such a great discipline when it comes right down to it. And Zemisei are very cerebral usually. They're very genteel, very cerebral. I mean, not all of them, obviously. But as a trope, stereotype, archetype, Zemisei are usually that kind of like cold, detached, cerebral, intellectual vampire. And Auspex kind of like helps with that. Also, Dominate is kind of a cheat code for controlling other people. That kind of seems beneath Zemisei for me. So it's mostly just a flavor style thing. It doesn't really matter. What disciplines you have as core clan disciplines are mostly irrelevant, actually, in Vampire now, when it comes right down to it. Unless you're playing a multi-year game, and being very generous with XP, if you're not using the XP charts as defined in the book, you're really unlikely to be buying lots of disciplines anyway. So for the most part, the disciplines you start with are the disciplines you're probably going to be using throughout the game, with only a few additions here and there. So yeah, so I get it. Yeah, there are different combinations of how you could do it. I mean, once you're shape shifting or changing, then it is what it is. As far as changing others, I mean, Auspex also has like telepathy and the ability to like enter people's minds, possess them, that kind of thing. So there is already some Auspex powers that mess with other people. So when you mix it with Protean, the ability to kind of like change their essence and make it real in their flesh. I mean, there's lots of ways you could write it. When it comes right down to it, just comes down to the writing. Like there's no, as you're putting there, Auspex plus Protean equals self change, Dominate plus Protean equals shifting others. I think that's perfectly fine and reasonable. I would say that it really just comes down to the writing, and the writing will make the math work as far as how amalgams work. And that's the long and the short of it. Also, for most disciplines, or like for most amalgams, the like power set, at least this kind of has become kind of an unofficial way of V5 doing it, which is a power set is basically a coupling of two specific disciplines into an amalgam. So like all Serpontis disciplines are Protean plus Presence, right? And all Vicissitude disciplines are Dominate plus Protean, and so on and so forth. So that seems to be the way that it's going. And all Chemistry is, I forget what it is. Is it Obfuscate, Presence, or something like that? Something like that. So that seems to be the way V5 is kind of like done it now. That's not like an official thing, but that seems to be the way V5 is going. And of course, in my own writing, I've added like the little kickers like into the powers. Like what is, like if it is a Chemistry power, it gets a little Chemistry kicker that gives it a little bonus when you hit the benchmark given by the kicker. In the case of Chemistry, you take less stains when you use the power if you're basing the illusion on a dream. Yeah. So people want more powers in general. I would agree with that. Well, yes, there's no reason to complain about Achille. We all have our faves and whatnot when it comes to developers and writers, I'm sure. I wouldn't argue with people who love or hate like Harlan Ellison or H.P. Lovecraft or whatnot. It is who it is. I mean, obviously, there are really no RPG writers on the level of either of them. So we'll see. So I was talking about potence, and the main thing about, as I was saying, for the physical disciplines, is they all have kind of weak spots. Level 4 being the biggest weak spot of all the physical disciplines in the core book, because they're all the I'm going to share my powers with you disciplines. So this is actually the only potence power in the book, in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat. Juggernaut requires Soaring Leap. And it is, in my opinion, kind of the flashiest potence power in the game right now. There's actually a power in the player's guide, which I didn't write, which is very similar to Juggernaut. I forget what it's called. I think it's called like Shockwave or something like that, which is more of a kind of superhero power. You kind of like jump in the air and then land and like do like the people's elbow on the sidewalk or something like that. It's a fine power. This power is more about like busting through walls, and kind of knocking over buses and all that. So it's really kind of a like raging in the street power. It is pretty elegant, I think, in that it uses the like strength stat power. Yes, there was an old level 6 or 7 potence power from 2nd edition or so. I believe it was called Shockwave, and it was basically I punch the ground and everybody falls down. It's kind of, I mean, it's a kind of classic superhero move. Maybe a little bit out of place in a vampire game, but potence is a very flashy power. So mostly this one basically uses the systems of Soaring Leap and the basically the strength chart in the V5 core book to basically just let you just smash through things, knock things out of your way in a path. It's a pretty good power, and I think if you have a choice between this and the like share my potence abilities, it's a pretty good choice. But also we had kind of the Sabbat in mind, so this is definitely a power that might be out of place in a more like subtle game. And you were saying that you were in your last Black Hand game, Gord. Game Instinct ended up stealing the skull of Tito, and the priest had to reckon with eating his last remaining mortal touchstone, and of course changing him in the process. Well, I'm glad that you guys are having a good time. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have as I've said before. Sabbat games in general kind of put you in positions you're not going to get in a lot of other games, especially with like elements of personal horror and all that, and you know what happens to you moving forward from that and what it means. I'm sure as personally horrible as that was for the priest to eat their last remaining touchstone and all that, they'll also have to contend with the fact that amongst their pack, probably they're seen as, that's seen as kind of a really bold, dedicated move. So in some ways, that tackles that concept of the internal tensions that I feel is always makes for the most powerful writing in stories, is when you have these competing goals and competing ambitions that are at odds with one another. And you have to constantly make these suboptimal choices, balancing all the things that you want. Obviously you've got your personal desires, like your connections with this touchstone, this mortal or whatnot, that you may want to maintain. Then you have like your political ideological desires, which depending on your path of Cain or whatnot, maybe even path of Cathari, um, which is to do potentially despicable things to this mortal, and of course the pressures of your pack, who will look at you askance if you keep, putting this mortal first, or paying attention to this mortal, or neglecting your duties for this mortal. Who will then cheer you when you basically harm yourself and wound yourself psychologically and potentially, you know, on some like kind of deeper level, as you wound your identity, your humanity, to take them out. Um, and of course, maybe some political aspirations within the Sabbat. A priest who can basically say they murdered their touchstone or whatnot in dedication to their path and spiritual beliefs. Um, excuse me. That makes for a great sermon of Cain. That makes for a great story, even if it may actually wound them. So for presence, I actually had a lot of fun with the presence powers. Um, uh, I I love the presence discipline. I think it's a fantastic discipline. I like its subtlety. I like its manifold uses. I also like that it's a very kind of vampire oriented power. It's definitely kind of a very classic vampire ability, that kind of allure, that je ne sais quoi. Um, and you don't even really know what you're doing. It's distinct from dominate, but similar, and in my opinion, superior. But everybody's everybody's mileage may vary. Um, so we wanted something that was true to the Sabbat in a sense, but we're very much presence powers. So we basically threw in two level 2 presence powers here. Yet again, kind of going with the idea of the disciplines having weak points. Not that these powers are badly written. In the V5 core book, the level 2 discipline powers are fine. Um, uh, it's not a bad power at all, but it's definitely the weakest of them. So we wanted something that would be a good. We wanted powers that would be a good trade off for not taking that VPG V5 core book power, because that's what was kind of on the table. As I said, the Black Hand Playing the Sabbat, it came out before the Vampires Player's Guide. And really the main source of other disciplines was just the core book. The Cambria book, I think, has one or two disciplines in there, and the Anarch book, I believe, has only one discipline in there. I believe it has Eyes of the Serpent, and that's it. I don't think there's any other discipline in there. So the first one is Predator's Lure, which is basically just a point-to-point eye contact summon. It's a like beckoning. It's like a come here, and you can specifically just do that, kind of like wave someone towards you. Got a 50-meter range, and they're just inexplicably drawn to you. So it's almost like an animal magnetism. Yeah, I would agree with that, Fenris. Awe and Daunt, the two level 1 presence powers, are basically the best powers in the set for their level by far. Like, Awe is an incredible power. I actually prefer Daunt personally, but that probably just talks about more about how I play than anything else. But Awe is like fantastic. Entrancement is pretty good. Summoning is okay. It's a little pricey for 4th level. And then Majesty is kind of a great power. I don't know if it really compares to the other level 5s the way it works now, but still a great power. But definitely Awe and Daunt are very powerful level 1s, great level 1 powers. I definitely, if you have like a throwaway 1 dot thing, Awe is a great buy for anybody. So, and then the other one, Yeah. Daunt is only intimidate, but it also helps in combat. So that's kind of the main thing with Daunt is it actually makes it gives you a chance in a fight if you even if you're a social character. Um, and yeah, and all I agree is fantastic, very useful. And yeah, probably more powerful than Daunt. The other power is Bring It On, which was very much a kind of Sabat power. Well, Sabat Anarch. I could actually see Anarch making good use of this power as well in a Maria focused campaign, maybe a little less useful. Um, but basically, just like a taunt power, a like come get me power that throws penalties on enemies unless they attack you, and uh, if they're nearby enemies, they basically have to make a check not to target you. Um, and if you basically also, throw out the fangs, the hiss, the claw, they get a penalty um, on all their attack rolls. So it's a pretty good one. It actually, even though I love Daunt, it specifically can't be used with Daunt. It you can either taunt them or you can scare them. You can't do you can't do both really. Um, I think it's a pretty good power and it's free. It doesn't cost a rouse check or whatnot, and it lasts the scene. Um, both very good. I think very good, useful powers, um, and very flavorful while keeping presence and the Sabbat in mind. Um, Moving on, we have the Protean powers. This is actually a pretty big section because we obviously, well, not too big, but there are definitely a few more powers here than some of the other sections, silly because of vicissitude. And we wanted to mess with vicissitude a little bit. Um, there are actually more powers in the back of the book that have been added further on. We added more vicissitude and obtenebration powers. And I don't know if I added the Shibistry powers, actually. I'll double check. But I know I added the powers from Crowned in Shadow, the Lasombra supplement that was released for free at the Storyteller's Vault. We'll pay what you want. You can get it for free, but you can also like throw a couple bucks at it. And the New Flesh supplement, those powers, all the powers in those two books have actually been included in this book in the appendix. So maybe I'll go over those disciplines when I'm done with the main discipline section here, just so I can have them all kind of in one place. Um, so, uh, well, I'm glad. Yeah, Flens. I get a lot of pushback on Flens. I'll get to it. But I still stand by my argument that Flens is no more for the fact that Flens is an amalgam. Uh, it is no more powerful than Wolf Claws. It is basically literally Wolf Claws with a little additional kicker. That I think the fact that it's an amalgam completely makes up for. And the kicker actually isn't even a kicker. The fact that it can do crits if you're using crits. So if you're already using the crit rules in your V5 games, then Flens is exactly Wolf Claws. It's literally the same system, almost a copy and paste. Um, but to each their own. Your game is your game. And yeah, Whispers to the Flesh, um, which is kind of Flens, uh, uh, Flens at range. Um, is I think is a cool power thematically, and it's interesting. And it auto kills mortals, which is always great. But as like a combat power, it's actually kind of weak. If I was to rewrite it, I think I would play with it a little more. But I also like that it's kind of simple, straightforward, and it kind of does something fun, even if it's not really at the same power level. as others. And I also like the fact that Whispers to the Flesh, because it has Flens as a prerequisite, um, doesn't make Flens useless. Like power, I feel powers that have other powers as prereqs, they should either build on that power in an interesting way, or do something completely different. If they totally eclipse their prereq power, like some of the shape change metamorphosis kind of power set, then I feel that's not so great. I feel like that power, you're using powers as speed bumps, which is not a good way to build things. And the fewer prereqs you have, the better. Especially considering it's an amalgam power. Though technically Whispers to the Flesh is not an amalgam power, but it does require an amalgam power as a prereq. Yeah. Um, right, I would agree with that. It's stronger than Arms of Ahriman. Um, I have my own issues with Arms of Ahriman. I kind of and Oblivion in general, which I won't get into again. It's not the bash on Oblivion channel. Despite my own feelings. Um, so I've definitely rewritten Arms of Ahriman and Arms of the Abyss to be more of a kind of like push pull manipulation power and less of a straight combat kill power. Though it can kill mortals in my writing of it. Though it is technically Arms of the Abyss, I think it's even a different level than Arms of the Ahriman. I think it's level 2 if I remember correctly. So you could technically use them both if you wanted to be like Captain Tentacles, but it is what it is. Though probably if I was a storyteller, I would want you to use either Obtenebration or Oblivion. Probably not both. That could get a little weird. Um, with Protean, first and foremost is Blind Sight as a level 1, which is basically you like grow feelers and antennas and other gross stuff so that you can sense things around you. Detect heat signatures, faint scent, subsonic sounds, changes in air pressure, that kind of thing. So within 10 meters, you can sense and even see past obstacles, natural concealment such as walls. So that's a pretty big range and pretty useful for a level 1 power that's passive. But I would say potentially masquerade breaking. If you activate it and like grow tentacles and weird antenna out of your face and hands and stuff like that. It does not detect obfuscated individuals, but it does give you a bonus when trying to detect obfuscated individuals if you have unseen sense. So it's a pretty useful power. I actually think if I was to choose a level 1 Protean power, I'm not a huge fan of the way Gleam of Red Eyes is written. I think the you can see in the dark power is a little weak and strange, especially when compared to like heightened senses. Weight of the Feather is actually really powerful and great. Probably my favorite of the level 1 Protean powers. Though it has its own like issues, of course, and nothing really builds on it. Well, that's the thing, is there's not much to add to Gleam of Red Eyes, Fenris. Like it's a cool power. Like the really only thing I've ever seen done with it is adding the intimidate part. Maybe I would make it more like Predator Vision, where it detects like heat signatures and stuff like that, so it could potentially help you, like track things, like living things that like leave their heat pattern on stuff, look through like walls, all that stuff. So if it was more of a kind of like I'd say Predator Vision, heat sense kind of power, maybe that would be more interesting. Um, so it would go beyond sight. Um, and right, and basically what Gord is saying there is basically the concept that vampires naturally operate at night, so they are basically confronting darkness all the time. Um, so since it's kind of a since no one's applying a 2 die blanket penalty for this kind of constant darkness you're in, unless you're in like well lit city streets all the time, since that's the assumed default, Gleam doesn't really make much sense. So like vampires being able to see in the dark as kind of a natural ability of being a vampire, just like all vampires have fangs and can drink blood and all that, and all vampires are like a little bulletproof. All vampires should have dark vision, right? Like in Requiem, all vampires should have the ability to see in the dark. Though Gleam of Red Eyes, if I remember, is a power in Requiem too. Maybe not. Oh no, that's right. It was like Predators. It was the Predators taint stuff. Oh my god, that was terrible. That when you touch taints, yeah, I think like Protean 1 made your taint stinkier than other vampires or something like that. Just terrible. Uh, oh my goodness. Um, but and I like Requiem. I wrote a lot for Requiem, so you know it is what it is. But I would say yeah, the dark vision thing, the um, so yeah, yeah, I didn't really read. I didn't mess too much with Requiem 2E. Once they kind of uh, once they moved into the kind of like God Machine era of New WoD, I was already gone. I wasn't really playing the game anymore. Um, so the the right, the concept that not all vampires see in the dark doesn't make too much sense. Heightened senses does a lot more than let you see in the dark, but seeing in the dark is in there. Gleam of Red Eyes, I think I would add the heat vision. Like, basically, Gleam of Red Eyes should be doing most of what Blind Sight does, but in the more narrative sense of it being a body heat detector. You know, obviously, things with a pumping heart, moving blood through it, that would be pretty cool. So Gleam could basically kind of do everything Blind Sight is doing, with the caveat that you're, you know, seeing body heat, that kind of thing. That would be pretty cool. Moving away from the kind of flashlight eyes concept that it kind of is now. And I also didn't like the glowing red eyes are scary, so they give you a bonus to intimidate. I mean, okay, that's fine. I guess they could be. That's more of a situational circumstance thing. I don't really know if I would write that into the power. Like, if I saw someone with like 2 red glowing things in their face, I would assume it was a mask, or some kind of contact, some kind of technological development. I would not assume they're a scary vampire. Um, like, unless they like walked up to me and like the eyes glowed in some manner that was obviously unnatural, I guess. But for the most part, I have walked around places and seen people with like, you know, glowing red dots in their face, like not just on Halloween or whatever. Maybe I go to too many conventions or live in a weird neighborhood. Um, but it's not something I would assume. So like those kind of like bonus to intimidate kind of stuff, I don't really think that would do it for me. Moving on through Protean, um, we're getting into more of the vicissitude stuff. Trophy Hunter, also level 1, which is more of the vicissitude angle. Though it actually doesn't have the vicissitude kicker. I don't think any of these do technically, because this is the original. This is the original copy of the book. Um, so it might not have that stuff written in, which is fine. um, so that would be in that. That's actually something I add in the appendix, and it lists these powers as ones that can benefit from the vicissitude kicker. The vicissitude kicker, if I remember correctly, I would have to look it up, but it's I don't remember off the top of my head. But Trophy Hunter is basically you kill someone, a mortal, and now you can wear their face. Um, so you have to kill them. That's one. It's only once per scene, and then it's free to actually use it and take their face on. And it's kind of a fragile disguise. You can't like mimic their. You can either mimic their voice or take on their face. And it lasts until your next feeding or your hunger reaches 5. And if you kind of do something too complicated, the disguise can like fall apart if you like get into a fight or overuse it, that kind of thing. That's really at the storyteller's discretion. You can actually keep a memento of the victim, and then from then on, if you want to use their face or voice again, you then have to use a rouse check once you have the memento. Which kind of plays into the Zemese base default clan weakness of being hoarders as well. So I thought that was a nice touch. Though we have an alternate clan weakness for them, if I remember correctly, in the back of the book. And the player's guide has an alternate clan weakness for them as well. Though the covetousness stuff, I think we made their clan compulsion as opposed to the clan weakness. Flens, which we talked about, that's kind of the like wolf claws. You literally, rip flesh off of a victim. So it's a vicissitude power in which you kind of, instead of using vicissitude in a like subtle way, impersonating someone, you use it in the most crude way, which is basically just like grabbing handfuls of flesh off of them and like tearing it off. As if they were made of like, Play-Doh, and that kind of thing, and just leaving, terrible injuries on them. So the main thing with Flens is it basically does Wolf Claws damage, +2 damage modifier, small piercing weapon, superficial health damage, but not halved versus vampires. But if you make a critical win against the victim, then you get to choose to inflict either the blinded or broken limb crippling injury. And if they already have that, you can give them the crippled injury instead. Mortals are often left with gruesome scars even after they heal the damage from these wounds. That kind of thing. So pretty good power, and it lasts a scene. So you do the rouse check, and you have the ability to rip flesh off people for the whole scene. So pretty useful, given it's only Dominate 1 for the Amalgam. But as I said, it's mostly superficially different than Wolf Claws. I guess the main, advantage to it than Wolf Claws, other than the fact that it can do crippling injuries, excuse me, is that you don't have claws. Your hands look normal. You don't look, they're not glowing. They're not like dripping with flesh or whatever. I mean, narratively, you could say that if you wanted to. But as the default, there's no outward sign that you are more dangerous all of a sudden. It doesn't do aggravated. Wolf Claws no longer doing aggravated. The good old days when basically Gangrel were super dangerous for basically being able to do aggravated at birth, basically. Whispers to the Flesh is the modified version of Flens. It has Flens as the prereq. Yeah, I'm happy with Ag being rare because, like, especially when players take Ag, it kind of slows the game down very often because the healing of Ag becomes kind of the central concern of the player, and it takes so long to heal Ag, so it can be a little rough. Whispers to the Flesh is specifically just you can literally call to someone's flesh and bone and cause their like bones to break, their flesh to like rip off of them and tear free from them, possibly flying to you and all that. So similar to the OG level 4 thaumaturgy power, I guess they still have it, where you stole blood from people. But this time you're basically like ripping the flesh and stuff free of them. Mortals. Um, a mortal who takes at least 1 point of damage is crippled, collapses, unconscious. So basically, against mortals, they're they're kind of screwed by this power. Supernaturals just take damage based on the roll. It's a rouse check per attack, and it is a contested roll. It's verse. Intelligence Protean versus Stamina Composure or Stamina Fortitude. So a pretty interesting power, level 3. But narratively is where it is mostly. I would say as for a combat level 3 power, it's probably not the best you could do. But if you're leaning heavily into vicissitude, it's pretty interesting. And there's kind of like the combat vicissitude powers, and then there's the kind of like the crafter vicissitude powers. And I don't really get into the crafter vicissitude powers here. I think at this point in V5's development, the companion was out, but not the player's guide. And the companion had the like kind of crafter vicissitude powers in it. And so we didn't really want to mess with those. I actually do mess with those later in the appendix of this book because we add the New Flesh supplement to this book. And people who already have this book basically get the New Flesh, all the stuff in the New Flesh supplement for free. They just can re-download the newest version of this book if they don't want to download the New Flesh as a separate book. There we kind of play with the V5 vicissitude, crafter powers, because I felt personally that the crafter powers, as presented in the companion book and then later and reprinted in the Vampire V5 Player's Guide, really got into kind of the exalted tree problem, or the 3.5 D&D kind of feat tree problem, where you're really kind of locking players into this very specific path for very little payout. Like you're really locking them into like three specific discipline powers, all of which are amalgams. So they also have to buy, I think 3 powers in a completely different discipline to qualify, because I think the highest, I think one of them requires Dominate 3 to basically kind of create ghouls that have like buzzsaw mohawks, which is fun and cool, but that's a big investment for very little payout. And potentially Vaz, but there's no explanation of Vaz. So we really simplify that in the New Flesh supplement, which I said is an appendix to this book. And in the New Flesh supplement, we basically have plots, which are kind of mini projects, which allow you to make like, crazy stuff like those, war ghouls and like Vaz and, all that. And we kind of rewrote those powers so they're not locked in. For Exalted, sure. It can be a feature of Exalted, but in Exalted you get a lot of powers. So maybe Exalted isn't the best example. But that's the thing that it reminds me of. Maybe like Dragon Blooded, but I don't know if that would make sense for people if I say that. But Exalted basically had powers in these really complex chains with like prerequisite powers that could be like 4 or 5 powers deep. So it could get very complicated and could really require some real mapping out for what you wanted to do. And that was a problem that 3.5 D&D really encountered with feats, as feat trees became really complicated. And unless you were playing a fighter, you just weren't getting that many feats really to build these kind of complex feat chains. So there might be a feat you'd really want that could be core to your play style. But unless you're starting the game at like 12th level, there's no way you were going to get that. And starting at first, and you'd have to plan your way to that feat from first level. And so I didn't really want that problem in V5 at all. So that's basically what I'm talking about. Yeah, I liked Exalted. I especially liked Abyssals. I'm a huge Abyssals fan. I love Abyssals. I would play Abyssals, today. Infernals, I love the writing, though I didn't really play it and wasn't really of interest to me. But the writing and concepts were fantastic in Infernals. My co-author on the official V5 Sabbat book, wrote a lot of stuff for Infernals. Really did incredible stuff on the V5 official Sabbat book too. He wrote the Path of the Sun, which I think a lot of people agree is a really cool new concept added to V5 and the Sabbat in general. So yeah, I love Exalted. I think it's fantastic. The way the power trees work, but really not for me. I really haven't played Exalted or Abyssal since the first edition. I think I still have my first edition Abyssals book. So I don't know what the next editions were like. I have no idea. A friend of mine really loved Dragon Blooded. I think he actually wrote the Path of the Wood book. Yeah, he wrote the Path. I think it was called Path of the Wood. Yeah, so he, I think, yeah, that was Dragon Blooded. Yeah, Aspect Book Wood. Yeah, he wrote that. He loved Exalted, Dragon Blooded, all that stuff. It's one of my oldest friends actually. And he would actually go on to write Overlight, the RPG, the Renegade RPG. I wrote an adventure for that too. That's more of just a short circuit in my brain. But I guess Feng Shui. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Path of the Moon could be like Lilith focused. That could be kind of interesting. Like Thin Blood Lilith focused would be pretty hilarious. The Feng Shui, I guess, would be the closest thing I could think of where a system is really built on chains of feats and powers, and it works really well because the different power sets are very self-contained. So they're different paths for how it works, but each power set is very self-contained, and each, I guess, like class or playbook only has access to certain kinds of power sets. Like some classes can get sorcery power sets, some classes can get kung fu power sets, and some classes can get kind of like, like tech power sets or whatnot. And each and some classes are really focused in one. Like the kind of like wizard gets a bunch of sorcery dots, and like the killer gets a bunch of like kind of like, I guess tech dots or whatever, and so on and so forth. Yeah, Robin Laws wrote Feng Shui, and it's, like a lot of stuff he writes is very well done. I'm a big fan of Robin and Ken's work in general. I love the like gumshoe system. I think Night's Black Agents is very good. There's definitely a lot of Night's Black Agent stuff adopted into V5, though in kind of weird, oblique ways. So moving on from that is Blood Sorcery, and I think I'll talk about Blood Sorcery and then that's it. All right, so great. So I'll do Blood Sorcery and then we can wrap up. Excuse me. I need to drink some coffee here. So with Blood Sorcery, as I did with the Ravnos, they had like these dream focused powers because that's kind of the direction we wanted to move with the Ravnos. We wanted to be like the Ravnos or the Clan of Nightmares. They steal dreams. They make stuff out of dreams. They don't do like kind of like light illusions, like they're not David Copperfield, right? I wanted to give them more of a kind of a Sandman feel. Um, that basically they're stealing dreams, they're shaping dreams into what they want, and that's what they're like showing you. And this is kind of a shared mass hallucination in a sense. And it's less about kind of like trickery and light illusions and like smoke and mirrors, and more about kind of like a shared psychic experience, more of a shared esoteric space. So they feed off people and they see their dreams, and they can steal and take these like dream tokens, and then they can shape those dream tokens into the illusions they use. So they like steal a key from a child's dream, they find a locked door, they then manifest that key and unlock it with that key, that kind of thing. Or they need to make a monster with the level 4 power, so they hunt down someone who has terrible crippling nightmares or whatever, and they like observe the nightmare and they create the like dream creature out of their own blood, out of that nightmare. They don't have to do that, but if they do, they get the Chemistry benefit, which is when that creature kills something in front of them, they'll take less stains from it. That's great, and so on and so forth. And that's something we explore in the Insatiable Dreams supplement in greater detail. And I think I will add the Insatiable Dreams supplement to this book as an appendix. I don't think I have in the latest version. I'll double check. I should really know my own book better off the top of my head, but I'm just getting old. I know the New Flesh and Crown and Shadow are in here. I don't remember if I added Insatiable Dreams. I guess I could just check, because I think it's in the thing. So yes, I've only added the Crowned in Shadow and the New Flesh. I've not added Insatiable Dreams yet in the addendum. So I will do that. So that the complete set of those supplements will be in there. I was kind of holding off on that because I was thinking of putting out another supplement dealing with another clan, but I don't think that's going to happen. I've got a lot kind of planned, and I need to stop putting stuff out and work on the longer term stuff that's kind of like in mid development. So, Blood Sorcery. The reason I brought up Chemistry is because in the original Sabbat books that I love, the Steve Brown Player's Guide to the Sabbat, it was Salubri. It was going to be a Salubri focused supplement, but Saskia really didn't have the time to work on it, and I didn't really want to work on it on myself without her. Since she's a much bigger Salubri head than I am, so that's basically the main reason. Kind of like reworking the Salubri would have been a much bigger thing in general, because their clan weakness, their baseline clan weakness, is kind of complicated. It would require some reworking. That would be interesting. The like Sweet Blood thing is actually something I wrote and developed for the original unpublished Vampires Player's Guide, so you can blame me for that on some level. I even had like an Ashira name for them, which meant the sweet ones, which was kind of a double entendre in Arabic, because it meant that they were merciful, but it also meant they were tasty. So it was kind of funny, I guess, if you know some Arabic. So the way it's implemented, I would change slightly. I would keep the Sweet Blood thing, but I would move away from the it makes others hungry thing, because I feel that is too much. Like, especially with the fact that they basically all have stigmata, that they're all bleeding at higher levels. It's a bit much. Um, so I feel like just them having sweet blood and people knowing they have sweet blood would kind of be enough, especially if there was some kind of kicker, possibly if their drug was like, if their blood was like a drug on top of being sweet, then that would be enough. People would seek them out for their blood and try to deoberize them. Maybe I would give people bonuses for deoberizing Salubri, like give them extra experience points based upon their um, based upon their blood potency. You know, that would be pretty. That would be pretty nasty drawback as well, as you'd become a constant Dalbury target for people. Uh, but anyway, and then their power set. I'm not a big fan of the disciplines they have currently. Uh, uh, but you know, it is what it is. We did a little work on it. I don't want to dive into it if I'm not gonna keep working on it. So we'll see. Maybe that'll happen after I get the other stuff I'm working on out for Sabbat focus stuff. But as I was saying, Chemistry, Ravnos, dream focused. One of the things I loved about the Player's Guide to the Black Hand, the Player's Guide to the Sabbat, written by Steve Brown, was how much dream stuff there was in the Sabbat. Like the vision quests, they had dreaming as a secondary skill in there. They had a whole thaumaturgical path, Gift of Morpheus in there. And it was part of the kind of like religious, spiritual, prophetic tradition of the Sabbat about dreams. Vestin Senseiya, obviously famous Sabbat Malkavian Antitribu, had prophetic dreams and was basically one of the reasons the Sabbat survived into the modern day. I basically ignore the V5 incarnation lore about her personally, but you know, everybody can do what they want. She's still Sabbat to me. So I wanted to recreate that a bit in Blood Sorcery. So the only two Blood Sorcery powers in here are Dream Focused. They're both kind of interesting adaptations of powers found in the Gift of Morpheus thaumaturgical path. There's Chains of Morpheus, which is kind of a take on Enchanted Slumber, which I believe was like the level 4 power for Gifts of Morpheus. But it only works on mortals, and you basically trap mortals in their dreams. You put a little kind of like blood, you put like a drop of blood on them, not enough to actually cause a rouse check. And they can't be awakened unless they're wounded, basically. And vampires can feed on them and all that stuff. And you can actually kind of guide what kind of dreams they dream while they're trapped in that dream. And that could potentially affect their blood resonance or even their desire. And it lasts for the whole night. So it's a level 1 blood sorcery power. Nothing, super interesting. But if you're a dream-focused thaumaturge, it's, kind of a nice little setup. And, of course, you can craft dreams if you have an interest in that. Then Breath of the Lotus Eaters, which I think is very useful level 2 power for blood sorcery, where you basically, cut yourself. And when your blood seeps out, it seeps out as this kind of dream-infused smoke. You basically become like a opium fog machine that drugs and puts mortals to sleep. So you can kind of smoke out an entire house or floor of mortals. And then basically do what you want in there. And then the mortals, of course, are drugged, so feeding off of them can drug you too. And, they can also wear gas masks and all that to resist it. So pretty useful, and it lasts for the scene. I think it's actually one of the better level 2 blood sorcery powers out there. Chains of Morpheus, power level-wise, I don't think compares to the other level 1 blood sorcery powers, really. Like, you're probably going to get more use in general from, like, whatever it's called, acid touch or who knows what. But it's thematic, is what it boils down to. We have a few rituals in here. Most of these are based on Sabbat thaumaturgical rituals from past editions, actually. Well, that's not fair. I'd say half of them are. Veil of Life, um, Blood Fetch, Bottled Voice, of course, and then Mirror Walk. Just going through them very quickly. They work like any other blood sorcery ritual. You make the rouse check, and then you make the intelligence blood sorcery test, and the difficulty is ritual level +1. Veil of Life, which, this is always kind of funny because this is actually an original thaumaturgical power from the Sabbat book Player's Guide from back in the day, I think 2nd edition. Kind of that transition period between 1st and 2nd edition. Well, it actually wasn't really a transition period. There was basically, 1st edition was really like one book, really, and then a bunch of kind of supplements here and there. I think like Blood Bond, Alien Hunger, Milwaukee by Night, and the Storyteller's Handbook. Those are all like kind of... Oh, and A World of Darkness. Those are all kind of like 1st edition. And then 2nd edition, I think, is... Oh, and there is actually a player's guide for 1st edition. I have it. It kind of has like a Frankenstein guy crying on the cover, with like a white stripe in his hair, and there's like a car flipped over and on fire behind him, before the 2nd edition player's handbook comes out. But with the famous cover of like Portia and the doves and all that. So Veil of Life is in the Sabbat Player's Guide. It, being human and pretending to be human was kind of a much more common theme in older editions of Vampire the Masquerade, and not as hard to pull off, oddly enough. I think there's like a level 7 thaumaturgical power ritual. Thaumaturgical ritual in like the player's handbook that lets you like basically like walk around during the day as a person. So it wasn't like totally off base to do that. And so the Sabbat had a ritual where you could basically fake being human. And it was funny on some level because it was it was a Sabbat power, so really you aren't going to find it anywhere else, according to kind of the framework of the book narratively. So really a power that's kind of useless for them is a Sabbat, since pretending to be human isn't that useful for them. So I thought that was funny. I included it here. You basically, you put this moth's wing or pupa in your mouth, and as long as it's in your mouth, you are basically mortal. So for 5 nights, the vampire can eat, drink, and breathe just as a mortal. That causes their heart to beat, your temperature to rise, and the direct use of mortal technology such as touchscreens. So anything that would kind of like require you not to be dead, whatever that is. Since this magic is partially illusory in nature, cursory medical examination or engaging in sexual intercourse likely reveals a deception. Unlike Blush of Life, food consumed while under the effect of this ritual doesn't need to be regurgitated unless the power is ended prematurely. Lastly, this ritual cannot mitigate the Lasombra or Nosferatu clan baits. So that last part is kind of hilarious. So it kind of is a longer term Blush of Life in a sense, but not quite as good as Blush of Life. So I thought that was fun to include, and obviously would be less useful for Sabbat in general. So there it is. Level 2 is Blood Fetch, where you basically make a fake of like a mortal. You make this kind of like Fae-esque fetch. This mortal, this dummy of a mortal, possibly that you've killed or whatnot, to, I don't know why you'd want to do this. Maybe to, get some cops off your trail, or to make a haven, like maybe your haven you're taking up in somebody's house or somebody, and so you want to keep up the illusion that the house is still occupied by the residents you may have killed. So on and forth. It basically creates a semi-mobile, semi-communicative copy of a mortal. The fetch blinks, breathes, verbally responds to stimulus around them. This doppelganger seems alive and it even can pass a cursory medical examination, has a limited vocabulary of one-liners. Pleasantries and platitudes when asked question. The fetch disintegrates into ingredients if wounded and must be maintained with blood on a monthly basis by its creator. Only one blood fetch can be active at a time. So you can't like fill a whole house with them and like do the Brady Bunch, but you can kind of fake the occupant of like a trailer or a small house, that kind of thing. Or if you eliminate someone who's going to be missed, and you need to basically kind of like throw up this dummy to like get whoever off your trail while you make your getaway. Next is Taste of Stolen Dreams, yet again with the dream magic kind of stuff. You basically take some blood from a sleeping mortal, and then anyone who tastes that blood can experience the dream they were dreaming. So this could be pretty interesting. This was more of a kind of a plot point kind of power. Like the concept is kind of spelled out at the end here. Usually this is a dream being experienced by the mortal at the time of the ritual's execution. But mortals with prophetic dreams or reoccurring nightmares might empower the blood with those visions instead. So perhaps there's a plot point in your story where there's a mortal who's known to basically have dreams that come true. That would be a pretty interesting NPC. And so perhaps somebody in your game, a Tremere Elder or whoever or whatever, has basically taken some blood from this mortal to basically like preserve this prophetic dream, so others can experience it. And that would be an interesting plot point for the game, was kind of the idea. But it could basically be used for anything, and it's kind of an interesting concept, this like sharing dreams concept with others. Some of the Ravnos powers, I believe River of Dreams, if I remember correctly, also lets you share dreams with other people. Scent of Succession, that basically lets you hunt down your sire or other others in your lineage. Only going up, not going down, if I remember correctly. So for a knight, you can basically kind of sense in what direction your sire or grandsire or whatnot are in. Excuse me. So an interesting power for like a convert, or maybe a political drama, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Or if you believe you come from some kind of lineage, perhaps you will try to find like someone 2, 3, 4 steps above you. Then Bottled Voice, which is a classic Sabbat ritual, which basically lets you steal someone's voice. Your vampire steals a victim's voice and traps it in a sealed bottle. So as long as you keep the sealed bottle in your possession, the victim is mute. If the seal or bottle are ever damaged, the victim's voice is restored immediately. Vampires and other supernatural creatures can have their voices bottled, but they must either willingly submit to the ritual, or the caster must restrain the victim throughout the rite and then score a critical win on the ritual test. So mostly you can steal it from mortals. So it's a very Sabbat way to kind of like silence someone who you don't want talking to like the cops or whatever, maybe. Though I guess they could write stuff down, communicate in some other ways, especially now in this technological world. But, pretty amusing. And stealing someone's voice could be interesting for other uses. Perhaps it could be a component in duplicating that person. If you were doing the plot where you're basically creating a doppelganger of someone, that's in the New Flesh. It's a plot where you basically use Fleshcraft to create like a perfect doppelganger of someone, which would take a lot of time and resources. Perhaps Bottled Voice would be a way that you could like extract their voice and you know, make the doppelganger even more like them. Uh, Heart-shaped box, obviously a Nirvana reference, but more importantly, this is actually goes back to thaumaturgical rituals found mostly in the player's guide, not of the Sabbat, but the OG player's guide, where some rituals would basically create these like repositories. And so this kind of creates a like repository of willpower for you. Um, and I'll just read the example because it's kind of complicated. Fatima creates a heart-shaped box and scored 7 successes on her ritual test. She needed 4 successes to succeed and so gained a margin of 3 successes beyond the base difficulty. This would normally give Fatima a heart that can absorb up to 4 damage, her margin of success plus 1. But since she only has 3 levels of blood sorcery, the clay heart is also capped at 3 damage levels that it can absorb. As long as you never look at the heart again, it absorbs wounds that were intended for you. While this ritual is in effect, you ignore the first aggravated health or willpower damage you would have suffered in a round. This damage is instead inflicted on the clay heart. The clay heart absorbs damage equal to 1 plus the margin of success on your ritual test, though it can never have more health levels than your level in blood sorcery. The heart never regains health levels, and it crumbles to ash once it absorbed its maximum damage. The heart doesn't absorb self-inflicted willpower damage. If it's ever burnt or exposed to sunlight, you immediately enter torpor, and this ritual's power is spent. So it's very much kind of like a Thief of Baghdad kind of thing. It absorbs damage for you, health and willpower damage. But if it's ever kind of exposed or hurt in these ways, burnt, exposed to sunlight, it can mess you up very badly. And then last but not least is Mirror Walk. This was always a kind of signature Sabbat power. I see it used in stories all the time, either as like a plot element or something like that, or you like enter a haven and there's like a weird ritual mirror or that kind of thing. Or it explains how someone is kind of getting in and out of places. It's just a wonderful power, and I definitely wanted it here in the Sabbat book, in the Black Hand playing the Sabbat. It's a level 4 ritual, which in older editions of Vampire, you know, would have been pretty powerful. But level 4 and V5, I would say these, not the same thing. So it had to kind of be watered down a little bit, but I think we got the primary elements of it. So it requires a large mirror and the ashes of a recently destroyed vampire. You eat some of the ashes while tracing your fingers along the surface of a large mirror. Once all but the last mouthful of ashes have been consumed, the mirror is ready to be called upon. So to use the ritual, you eat the last mouthful of ashes while touching a different large mirror. This creates a portal between this mirror and the mirror you originally prepared with this ritual. You can see whatever is reflected in the original mirror when you open the portal. This link only lasts for a number of rounds equal to 1 plus the margin of success you gain when casting this ritual. One vampire can step through the portal every round, instantly appearing in front of the specially prepared mirror. Mortals, ghouls, and vampires without a reflection cannot step through a mirror walk portal. The magic of this ritual is spent once the portal closes, or if the ritually prepared mirror is significantly damaged before it is activated. So it kind of screws Lasombra a little bit there. If you're using, mirror, Lasombra don't have reflection clan weakness. But it's only for vampires. It can allow like a whole pack to move through mirrors. You have to prepare a mirror beforehand. And you're basically kind of creating this like mouthful of ash in a sense that you're going to carry around with you. And then when you're ready, you eat the last mouthful of ash and boom, you can use the ritual to pop out at the mirror you'd already prepared. So it can allow for very long distance travel. Though, of course, it requires you to basically find a mirror where you're at already. So it doesn't let you kind of like surprise attack anyone just because they happen to have a mirror in their house. But it does allow for, traveling, pretty far distances, that kind of thing. So I think it's a pretty useful and interesting power overall. And like hits the elements of it. Um, so that is disciplines. If I come back for a disciplines 3, what I will do is explore the disciplines in the back of the book, in the Chained Heart addendum, which is kind of the addition we added to the book after the fact. Yeah. And we've got Crown and Shadow, and the New Flesh back there. So we'll do that next time. But that's all the time I have for today. But I'm glad so many people came into the chat, which is great. I'll have to stream more often, and hopefully have as many people in the mix. I'm glad to keep doing this, and no, my pleasure. I'm thankful to have some people interested in all that. Check out my Patreon and the Storytellers Vault and all that. You don't have to follow me on Twitter unless you like politics. And if you ever miss a stream or whatnot, or have further questions, you can check out the YouTube. Leave questions there. I guess you could also contact me on Twitter or my Patreon for questions. But maybe YouTube might be a little better about specific questions, because they would be in those videos, obviously. All right. Well, I will talk to you all later. Thanks a lot for being here, and see you next time. Praise Kane.